Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea holds a nationwide exercise to boost cooperation between the military, civilians, and the government in case of disaster or war. Almost 500,000 people are officially taking part. South Korea's financial regulators reject bids by two groups hoping to start new internet-only banks, a surprise to many in view of the Moon administration's push for innovation. And the World Health Organization recognizes gaming disorders as a disease. Here in Korea, where gaming is huge, it's divided, some in the medical profession and the gaming industry. It's 4 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us on our afternoon newscast. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea is holding an exercise this week called Ulchi Taegeuk. It's aimed at improving coordination between the military, the government, and civilians to better deal with contingencies like disasters. It replaces the Ulchi Freedom Guardian defense drills, which involved the U.S. Kim Jong-un reports.
Seoul's defense ministry says the new Ulchi Taegeuk exercise is an alternative to the previously held joint exercise with the U.S., the Ulchi Freedom Guardian, which had been conducted annually for more than 4 decades but was suspended this year. Some 4,000 government and related agencies, including the Ministry of the Interior and Safety, are participating in the new Ulchi Taegeuk exercise, which involves some 480,000 people.
The focus of this year's exercise is boosting cooperation among civilians, the government and military, and handling various contingencies including major disasters and terror threats, as well as risk management of national crisis and in case of war.
The new type of exercise combines 2 existing programs, the Ulchi exercise aimed at promoting military readiness in case of war, and the Taegeuk command post exercise, which focuses on the battle readiness of government and military staff. This year's Ulchi Taegeuk exercise is made up of 2 parts. The first part, which takes place on Monday and Tuesday, involves contingency measures and training for handling national crises and disasters, such as earthquakes. State-of-the-art technologies such as drones and unmanned planes are being used, as well as the testing of communication channels between forces on the ground and the country's Natural Disaster and Safety Status Control Center. The second part of the exercise is aimed at promoting military readiness in case of war and involves both military and non-military personnel. It's to take place from 4 p.m. local time on Tuesday until Thursday. And according to an official from Seoul's defense ministry, the focus of the second part this year is in raising Korea's military capabilities, with the envisioned transfer of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul in mind. The parts of the exercises involving civilians include education on CPR and evacuation protocols in case of fires. There are also exercises to prepare for cyber terrorism. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sat down for summit talks on Monday, after which they gave a joint press conference. They had a wide range of issues on the table, from trade to North Korea. Here the leaders are earlier in the day.
We're now about to start our official summit meeting, in which we're going to discuss various challenges of the international community, including North Korea. Even as we enter the new Reiwa era, I would like to show clearly both at home and to the world that the US-Japan alliance is firm.
I personally think that lots of good things will come with North Korea. I feel that. I may be right, I may be wrong, but I feel that. We've come a long way. Trade-wise, I think we will be announcing some things probably in August that will be very good for both countries.
Earlier, Trump was greeted by the new Japanese Emperor Naruhito in a formal welcoming ceremony at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo, becoming the first foreign leader to be greeted by Naruhito since he ascended to the throne on May 1st. Later, Trump is set to meet with the families of Japanese citizens abducted by North Korea in the 1970s and 80s. He'll also be the guest of honor at a banquet hosted by the emperor at the Imperial Palace. Despite the stalemate in denuclearization talks between North Korea and the U.S., President Trump is apparently confident that he has a good relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and that Kim will keep his word. Moon Gan-young reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un share a very good relationship, and the American leader is confident that Chairman Kim will keep his promise and move towards denuclearization. That's White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders in an interview on NBC's Meet the Press while accompanying the U.S. president on his state visit to Japan. She defended President Trump's approach to efforts to denuclearize North Korea after host Chuck Todd pressed her over the U.S. president's tweet a day earlier.
Look, the president's focus in all of this process is on continuing the very good relationship that he has with Chairman Kim, and he feels good that the chairman will stay firm with the commitment that he made to the president and move towards denuclearization. That's our focus. That's going to continue to be our focus.
Mr. Trump's tweet on Sunday dismissed concerns over the North's latest missile launch, calling them some small weapons which did not disturb him. Just hours earlier, his national security advisor John Bolton said there was no doubt the tests violated United Nations Security Council resolutions. Observers say the Trump administration is trying to keep diplomatic doors open to North Korea while staying committed to its goal of denuclearizing North Korea, even though Bolton admitted the U.S. has not heard much from Pyongyang since their last summit in Hanoi fell apart. 문건영, Arirang News.
Over the weekend, Bong Joon-ho became the first South Korean director to win the top prize at the Cannes Film Festival, the Palme d'Or, for his film Parasite. This afternoon, he arrived back in Seoul to a hero's welcome. Our Yoon Jung-min takes a closer look at this award-winning film.
Poong Joonho arrived home from France Monday afternoon. At the world-famous Cannes Film Festival on Saturday, Poong won the top prize for his latest movie Parasite. The black comedy, which uses satire to highlight the gap between the rich and poor, has been acclaimed by critics and viewers, even garnering an 8-minute-long standing ovation after its screening at Cannes. Experts see the movie as a potential game-changer for the South Korean film history.
This year is the 100-year anniversary of Korean cinema, so it's a very timely award. And so with lots of news coverage about the Korean film industry, it's encouraging to see it is a healthy industry.
Poong has been lauded for his meticulous quality of work and attention to detail. As well as his stunning cinematography, he makes use of satire and humor to shine a light on social irregularities. Poong's 2003 hit Memories of Murder uses satire to jab at the incompetence of state power. Poong's 2006 release The Host satirizes the helplessness of people within society as a family has to fight a monster alone to save their daughter. His signature themes appear again in his later works, Snowpiercer in 2013 and Okja in 2017. Parasite includes and builds on similar themes. While shooting his films, Poong has always paid extra care to his child actors in particular and emphasized the need to stick to the maximum working hour rule to improve working conditions for those on set. Along with Poong's success, his go-to actor Song Kang-ho has been with him almost every step of the way after they first worked together in Memories of Murder more than 15 years ago.
I've been working as an actor for nearly 20 years, and it's a wonderful job. It's been such a blessing and honor to work with such a wonderful director over the years.
Bong Joon-ho's Parasite hits cinema screens across South Korea on Thursday. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
South Korea's financial regulators have rejected 2 bids to establish new internet-only banks. There are only 2 existing ones to begin with, but apparently regulators thought the new ones don't have what it takes, at least not yet. Our Ko Ryun-hee explains.
Korea's financial regulator made an unexpected move on Sunday. The Financial Services Commission rejected 2 applications to set up internet-only banks, which would offer online banking and financial services without having physical offices. The FSC accepted the views of outside evaluators who said the first consortium led by Kium Securities lacked innovation and feasibility, and the other, led by financial technology company Viva Republica, lacked the ability for financing. The announcement comes as a blow to the Moon administration's push to reform the finance industry using internet-only banks in order to promote innovative growth.
Since September last year, the South Korean government has pushed for the approval of new internet-only banks. Through this, we expect it to come up with a new driving force for innovative growth and increased competitiveness in the finance industry. I am very sorry that both consortium's applications were rejected.
Currently, there are two internet-only banks in Korea. One is Kakao Bank, operated by Kakao Corporation, best known for its mobile messenger service. Some analysts say the decision is partly due to the lack of success of these banks. According to the Korea Information Society Development Institute, only 13.5% of almost 9,000 respondents said that they use internet-only banks. And although the assets of internet-only banks increased last year, the percentage of total bank assets held by internet-only banks stood at less than 0.5% as of September last year. The Commission says it'll accept further applications during the third quarter of this year, and the two groups might try again after fixing the cited problems. Korni, Arirang News.
South Korea's listed firms saw their financial health worsen in the first quarter of the year amid the economic slowdown. Data from the Korea Exchange show the average debt-to-equity ratio of 640 companies listed on Korea's main stock index, the Kospi, was around 111% as of the end of March. That's up around 6 percentage points from the end of 2018. Their total debt came to around $1.14 trillion, up 7.5% from 3 months earlier, but their combined equity only went up around 1.3%. It's time now for a look at the global market action this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Hwang Se-eun, Research Fellow at the Korea Capital Market Institute. Dr. Hwang, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for inviting me today.
So the closing bell has rung on this Monday, and it looks like we started the week negative here on the Kospi. It's been 3 weeks in the red on Wall Street, too. What's happening today in Korea and around the world?
The U.S. stocks closed higher Friday, but notched weekly losses as the market worried that the U.S.-China trade war is hurting economic growth. The Dow dropped 0.7% last week to post its fifth consecutive weekly decline, its longest losing streak since year 2011. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq fell for a third straight week, their longest slide since December 2018. Asian stocks kicked off Monday in mixed fashion as investors assess valuations after declines over the past 3 weeks, thanks to the escalation in the U.S. and China trade tensions. The yuan steadied after China warned against shorting the currency. Japan's Topix index edged higher by 0.31%, while Hong Kong and Shanghai stocks showed mixed price movements. South Korea's Kospi was little changed. I think the negotiators between the U.S. and China are going to reach a deal, but it will take a lot longer and be more difficult than investors thought a month ago. And any glimmer of hope that progress is being made will help stocks rebound in the future.
Got it. Well, meanwhile, the British Prime Minister Theresa May has announced that she's stepping down. No-deal Brexit remains a possibility, and we have the EU elections showing a move away from the centrist parties. How have the markets reacted to the news from Europe?
The prospect of a no-deal Brexit was fast becoming the central battle of the race among contenders to succeed Prime Minister Theresa May, with 4 of 8 leadership hopefuls having said Britain must leave the EU on October 31st, even if this means a no-deal Brexit. The British pound was steady at $1.27, having regained some ground after May set out a departure date, bouncing back from 4.5 months low of $1.26 set on Thursday. Pro-European Union parties held on 2/3 of the seats in the EU Parliament elections. Euro was little changed at $1.12 in Asian trade and off a 2-year low of 1.11 cents per euro touched on a Thursday as the market studied the outcomes of the vote. The focus is on how the EU member countries will react to the result of elections and how the Brexit negotiations will play out after these elections. So far, we've seen limited market reaction as far-right populist parties didn't do as well as some had feared.
Meanwhile, Trump and Abe meeting in Tokyo as the trade tensions between the U.S. and China continue to rise. We've got the Bank of Korea policy meeting coming up. What are stock investors going to want to watch this week?
President Trump will hold a summit with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe today in Tokyo after meeting with King Naruhito. Investors are paying attention to whether President Trump will issue a trade pressure card in this meeting, as the U.S. trade deficit against Japan has been seriously rising. Tokyo and Washington are working on a bilateral trade agreement, but Trump has said he does not expect major progress on it until July, when Abe ruling bloc faces an election for Parliament's upper house. The Bank of Korea will hold a monetary policy meeting on this coming Friday, with a majority of bond traders expecting the BOK to leave its key rate unchanged. However, investors and traders will closely watch the BOK meeting for whether it will provide hints about a monetary easing later this year. On Tuesday, May Consumer Confidence Index, Dallas Federal Reserve Manufacturing Index, along with March S&P Case-Shiller House Price Index will be released. Investors will need to pay attention to those indexes.
All right, Dr. Huang, we'll be watching for those numbers to come out, but that's where we'll have to leave it today. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Now, the World Health Organization categorizes gaming addiction now as a mental health condition. It's a decision that's causing clashes already between the medical profession and the gaming industry. Won Jung-hwan has more.
The WHO has included gaming disorders in its international classification of diseases, along with other disorders, such as gambling, amid growing global concerns about computer gaming addiction. The medical sector defined the disorder as a pattern of behavior characterized by impaired control over gaming that is evident for more than 12 months and significantly impairs everyday life.
Of course, we cannot diagnose that you have a problem for just a day or two, weeks, or even months. We see this as a disease for those who are suffering for more than 12 months.
South Korea's medical industry has welcomed the WHO's move as it could help health professionals prevent and treat the problems stemming from the disorder.
According to recent research, there are some 20% of people in their 20s to 50s who are actively playing games. So far, there is a lack of evidence for a specific drug or a specific program to effectively support them if they need help. That is why we need these clear new guidelines, so that we can engage in clinical tests and active health-related research.
But the gaming industry is against the WHO's new guidelines. It claims the guidelines will cause a loss of over $9.2 billion and 20% of the industry's jobs within 3 years of their implementation. The industry also claims that the move will deprive children of their rights, highlighting Article 31st of the United Nations Convention on Rights of the Child.
We are concerned that teenagers will feel a sense of guilt when playing video games. They have the right to enjoy their gaming culture. We feel it is unfair to categorize some teenagers by certain criteria which have very unclear diagnostic measures.
The Culture Ministry has also said it cannot accept the WHO's decision. The ministry argued that young people engage in compulsive gaming activities not simply because of games themselves, but because of other factors such as stress at school and lack of social support from teachers and peers. In response to the WHO decision, a committee representing the gaming industry will hold a press event on Wednesday at the National Assembly to outline its moves against the decision, raising concerns that the gaming industry and medical sector are set for more clashes in the future. 원정환, 아리랑 뉴스.
This Friday, South Korea is opening new duty-free shops at Incheon International Airport, not in the departures area, but in arrivals, a first for Korea. The stores operated by SM Duty Free and Entas Duty Free will sell alcohol, cosmetics, perfumes, and souvenirs, but not tobacco products. As for why no tobacco, the Korea Customs Service cited big price differences between ones sold at duty-free shops and ones sold on the market. The new duty-free shops at arrivals terminals are expected to alleviate the inconvenience for people having to travel with duty-free items that they bought before leaving the country. And these stores are also expected to create hundreds of jobs. More bad news for Chinese tech giant Huawei. Reports saying Huawei has now been kicked out of major global standard groups. Our Park Hee-jun has more.
Another series of body blows for Chinese tech giant Huawei, already on the ropes from the U.S. government's recently announced restrictions. According to the Nikkei Asian Review, Wi-Fi Alliance, which certifies Wi-Fi products and sets the standard, has temporarily banned Huawei's access to future standards. The Texas-based alliance includes Apple, Qualcomm, Broadcom, and Intel. The Chinese company has also voluntarily withdrawn from JEDEC, which sets semiconductor standards and counts global chip makers Qualcomm, Samsung, SK Hynix, and Toshiba among its members. Huawei has also disappeared from the SD Association, which develops standards for SD cards, the most popular memory card format used in portable devices. The SD Association says it's following orders from the U.S. Department of Commerce. Huawei can still use and develop their technologies, but it will have no say in setting the Western standards while its membership is suspended. It will be unable to influence technology development in its favor. Such U.S. moves escalating tensions, however, are hardly enjoying any popularity on the global stage.
Organizations like US-China Business Council and National Retail Federation have also expressed oppositions to the escalation of tariffs on China. According to the latest World Economic Outlook by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the intensification of China-US trade disputes may lead to a global GDP loss of 0.7% from 2021 to 2022, which is nearly $600 billion as a quantification.
But China still seeks cooperation with global tech companies. During his congratulatory remarks to the China International Big Data Industry Expo on Sunday, President Xi Jinping said countries need to strengthen cooperation to develop the internet, big data, and artificial intelligence. He said China is also willing to share with other countries opportunities that can advance the big data industry. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
With official projections and early results from the European parliamentary elections coming out, it seems European politics is about to become even more fragmented. Hong Yu reports.
The projected results for the new European Parliament show significant losses for the two centrist groups, the European People's Party and the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats. These two groups had previously dominated European politics, but lost out to smaller parties and only picked up a total of 329 seats. With these two parties losing their joint majority for the first time, the influence of nationalist and populist forces was expected to increase. But instead, their surge stalled, and rather millions of voters backed pro-EU Green and Liberal parties. The Greens are predicted to have picked up 20 seats and the Liberals 40, while the right-wing nationalists are predicted to have picked up 58 seats and the populists 8 seats. Once the 9th European Parliament is formed, the 28 leaders of the EU member states will start their discussions on who will be the next president of the European Commission, the bloc's executive arm. So there will be lots of horse trading in the next weeks about who gets which top job, and all of the various commissioners need the approval of the European Parliament. While historically, turnout has been relatively low, this year the European Parliament says voters were much more engaged, with polls showing the turnout rate at 50.5%, according to preliminary results. Over 350 million people across the 28 countries of the European Union were eligible to vote. Hong Yu, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thanks for being with us. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.